So New Age spirituality beliefs are somehow bad? Come on. Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome to I Call BS, the show where we simply take subjects and expose them for what they really are, BS. In this episode, we have Mr. Alan Parr, who runs a YouTube channel called The Beat, and he's talking about 7 ways that you can identify people with New Age spirituality beliefs. Let's check out what he's saying.
Okay, so let's say you meet someone and on the surface, it sounds like they've got a relationship with God. They're saying all the right things, but you're really not so sure. Here are 7 things you need to look out for and pay attention to and listen for to discern whether this person is a part of a New Age movement.
Okay, so we're already on shaky footing here. You seem to be defining New Age Christians or New Age spiritual people as those who do and say all of the right things, but don't actually have a relationship with God. Now, first, the term spirituality hasn't been particularly well defined, but to whatever extent it has been defined, at its core, it simply just describes people who have moved away from traditional religious beliefs. And in this sense, pretty much every generation from the time of the early Christians up until now have been New Age Christians. And this is very likely true for you as well. I mean, do you believe that women should not be ministers? Do you believe that women should not wear pants in church? Do you believe that homosexuals should be stoned to death? Do you believe that we're under New Testament grace rather than Old Testament law? Now, these are all strongly held beliefs from different ages, some as recent as 15 to 20 years ago. So if you in any way subscribe to a set of beliefs that sort of circumvent these older beliefs, you yourself are New Age. Now, another issue here is that you are committing the no true Scotsman fallacy. You are suggesting that these people who do and say all of the right things aren't actually real Christians. And without getting too deep into this fallacy, this all comes down to you professing to know what's in someone's heart, which I'm wondering, how do you do that?
Number 1 is this concept of being a spiritual person. So oftentimes people who are a part of a New Age movement will say, well, you know what, I'm a very, very spiritual person. But what exactly does that mean? I'm a spiritual person.
Now, the issue here is that, as you stated, the word spiritual hasn't been particularly well defined at all. But so-called Christians use this expression in a variety of contexts as well.
Right? So what you really want to be listening out for is not only do they believe in Jesus Christ, but more importantly, what do they believe about Jesus Christ? And that is going to tell you a whole lot about what that person actually believes and what they subscribe to.
The thing is, Christianity is made up of differing beliefs about Jesus. The Baptists believe one thing, the Methodists believe another. The Kojic people believe one thing, while the non-denominational Christians believe something else. So chances are, if you come across anyone that believes in Jesus, chances are they probably believe something differently than you about him, only if slightly.
Now, the second one is absolutely huge, and that is oftentimes people from New Age movements subscribe to what is called relative truth. And this is the idea that, you know what's true for me doesn't have to necessarily be true for you, because you have your truth, I have my truth, that person down the street has their truth, and who am I to judge whether your truth is really truth and my, truth is relative. There is no such thing as absolute truth.
So now you're getting into the philosophy of absolute truth versus relative truth. Now, this is something that philosophers have toiled over for centuries, and as far as we know, the jury is kind of still out on that. Nevertheless, the concepts that you're using here are more closely akin to concepts of right and wrong, and you're using the Bible as your authority for right and wrong. Now, there are many issues with this, but the main one is that if a person subscribes to the Bible as being the authority for right and wrong, which, okay, well, the problem is the Bible itself is very unclear and ambiguous about several different things.
An example of this might be, as a heterosexual man, I believe that marriage should be reserved and is defined by the relationship between one man and one woman. But if you are of a New Age movement, you may say, you know what, that's cool. That's your truth. That's what works for you. That's what makes you happy. But for me, my truth may be something different because it makes me happy.
You went for one of the easy ones about the whole one man, one woman thing. sort of implying monogamy and implying things about homosexuality. But how about the question of murder? According to the Bible, is it okay to murder another person in self-defense? Is it okay for your government to murder people during war times? I mean, one of the 10 commandments is thou shalt not kill. But we see God also telling the Israelite people to pretty much destroy everything in the enemy's camp, including women and children. And we see Moses murder an Egyptian soldier without any recourse from God at all. So then we have two different opinions or conclusions about the concept of murder. So since you seem to be subscribing to absolute truth, tell me, what is the absolute truth about whether or not it's okay to actually kill or murder someone?
Okay, the third thing that you want to look out for is how they describe God, if they even believe in God at all. And so oftentimes people from a New Age movement or New Age spirituality essentially will say that, I know there is a higher power out there, or there's a higher force, or there's something beyond me, or a higher consciousness or whatnot. And oftentimes they refer to God in all sorts of different ways other than just simply calling him God.
Have you heard the saying that a rose by any other name is just as sweet? Now, I bring this up simply to show that just because a person uses a phrase like higher power or refers to God as higher power, it doesn't mean that they necessarily subscribe to New Age beliefs. People have always referred to God with different names, from names like man upstairs to big man in the sky, to simply words like creator and king. And generally, all of these have been in reference to God Jehovah.
Matter of fact, they'll even refer to God as an it rather than a he.
So it may be, in fact, more accurate to refer to God as it rather than he. The Bible never speaks of the gender of God in any way. The Bible speaks of God in terms of spirit. So referring to God as it rather than he may be closer to his or its actual nature.
Now, this next one is a very interesting one, and I'm just going to call this one energy, vibes, etc. And so oftentimes when you meet someone who is of a New Age spirituality, you'll often hear them say, hey, I'm going to send good energy your way, or I'm sending good vibes your way. And so this comes from the idea that our bodies radiate some sort of energy field, and we're able to give off a certain type or level or amount of energy. Once again, this is an attempt to reject the supernatural and put the power back in the hands of individuals.
Now, this is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the phrase or expression, I'm sending good vibes your way, is simply that. It's nothing more than an expression. It's not just an expression used by New Age people if they in fact do use it, but it's a phrase used by people in general, from religious to non-religious alike. But the problem here is that you're sort of creating this false dichotomy. By nature of your statement, you're suggesting that people only say, I'll pray for you, or I'm sending you good vibes or good energy or whatever. And these two things are not mutually exclusive at all. The thing is, a person, Christian or otherwise, can use both of these expressions simultaneously. The expression, I'm sending good vibes or good energy your way, is more closely akin to saying something like good luck when somebody is, in a competition or when they're taking a test. It's really just saying, I wish you well and you'll be in my thoughts. So this phrase isn't about rejecting anything. It's really just about being kind and thoughtful.
The fifth thing that you want to look out for when you're talking to someone to see if they're a part of New Age spirituality or not is, do they subscribe to this idea of being inclusive? And what I mean here is, oftentimes New Age, people who are a part of the New Age movement reject monotheism, basically that there is only one God or there's only one way to get to God, right?
So actually, here's what people are rejecting when they subscribe to an inclusive doctrine. They're rejecting the fact that an all-powerful, all-seeing, all-knowing, and most importantly, all-loving and merciful God will send people to a treacherous, agonizing, and menacing hell. People through absolutely no fault of their own who say were born into a country where their governments dictated their religion to them with the fear of death, or even people who earnestly and honestly seek the truth about God but simply hadn't gotten there yet. But even devout Christians who've been in the doctrine their entire lives, but who fail to repent for a sin or two before they die, will be sent to an agonizing hell by a God who is supposed to be the epitome of love. That's what people are rejecting.
The sixth thing that you want to look out for is if this person starts talking about something called the law of attraction, or some people refer to it as karma. But as I said in another video, we're not even using the idea of karma correctly, because karma has the idea that if you do something good or bad in this life, then when you're reincarnated in the next life, then those things will help you in terms of the state that you return to.
So you're correct in saying that people use karma differently than what it's used in, say, Eastern religions and such. However, I'm sure that you understand that most, if not all, words can take on several different meanings. So since that's the case, it's really important to understand what a person actually means by a word or phrase that they say, especially if you're going to categorize them in some group, say New Age people.
And so when they start talking about, if I do good things and good things will come to me, or if I say good things, or if I believe a certain way, or if I speak certain things, self-talk, positive talk, then good things will happen to me. My friend, that is a sign that they are part of a New Age movement.
But the funny thing is here that the concepts that you're describing are not only concepts that are taught in church, but they're biblical. This concept is generally taught as pay your tithes and you will be blessed, and give and it shall be given unto you, and the wages of sin is death. All of these statements represent a sort of what you put in, you get out philosophy, basically in the same way that people generally mean when they use the word karma.
And the last one is a very, very simple one to spot, and that's this idea of mysticism. So if you are talking to someone and they start talking about this idea of channeling, which is the idea that you can kind of call up evil dead people or whatnot and actually have conversations with them through a medium or something like that, or tarot cards or psychics or astrology or out-of-body experiences, or they're really, really into this horoscope thing where they're looking at the different signs, that your sign versus my sign, and trying to figure out what you're going to do based on your sign. All of that is an example of New Age spirituality.
Now, it's extremely hilarious that your last point was about using a word in a way that it wasn't supposed to be used, yet you use the word mysticism here in a way that's completely different from its actual meaning. So you forgot to mention a few other people on your list. How about preachers, prophets, ministers, exorcists? All of these people claim to be telling you your future all the time, from who the person you're going to marry is, to the house you're going to live in, to talking to dead and evil spirits inside of your body and casting them out. You conveniently left those out. So all of your 7 reasons here seem to be rooted in the idea that New Age spirituality is somehow bad or somehow should be identified so that you can separate yourself from those type of people. That's actually what you said. But I think what we've shown here is that pretty much everybody that's watching this video and yours is, in a way, a New Age Christian. They come from a different age than other people, and their beliefs differ from people's beliefs, say 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And we've also shown here that these 7 ways that you claim to identify New Age people aren't necessarily reliable. A lot, if not all of them, can be attributed to any kind of person: atheist, New Age Christian, devout Christian, fundamentalist, whatever the case may be. Even people of other religions do and say these exact same things. So these are not reliable methods to identify a New Age person, as if you needed to identify them anyway. So all in all, I call BS on this video. It's just another set of unsubstantiated claims. So listen, make sure you jump down in the comment section and let me know what you think about this video. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hit that notification bell and give this video a thumbs up. That way you'll get the notifications every time I upload a new video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.